The devil's on the loose and he's dancing with the money.
Deep from the bowels of the Macabre Theater Laboratory, we bring you Macabre Cast. There is nothing wrong with your streaming service. You are exactly where you should be, where the slush puppy machine is always on and cold. Your favorite horror mag is on the rack, discreetly displayed between Women's Wear Daily and Cosmopolitan. I'm your host, Dark Mark, along with my mold-riddled counterpart, Karis, the Little Mummy, here to bring you the latest episode of Macabre Cast, where we'll be dropping R's where they belong and adding them where they don't. Ew! Newbies welcome, regulars welcome back, and worshippers, get out of here! This is a safe space for those who know that before Pamela Voorhees ever picked up an axe, knife, machete, or pitchfork, she grilled a mean burger. If you haven't already, subscribe, follow, like, and share my show on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and, when I'm not violating infantile community standard rules, TikTok. Tell friends to do the same. Even that guy who feels compelled to say after every horror film, "That wasn't scary. It really wasn't. That wasn't scary." Yeah, that guy. If you wish to interact with fellow monster kids, follow the Facebook page, Macabre Theater. It's there where you can send me a voice message through Messenger and participate in a future show. A link can be found in the description of this episode. Or, if you prefer, send me an email at macabretheater666@gmail.com. Macabrecast episode 164 and all of its gory glory begins now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Adoro il cast macabro.
Macabre.
Jason goes to hell, Karis.
Well, he does. Eventually. Not really in this film, though. It's more like an 11th hour reveal that Jason's actually some kind of snake demon that jumps from body to body.
Not a fan, Karis?
I'm a fan. And it's a cool name. If you're gonna call something, goes to hell, you may want to have a few scenes to take place in hell.
Anyway, for Father's Day, I received the very sought-after documentary, Hearts of Darkness, The Making of the Final Friday.
Very sought after? Hey, embellish much?
Anyway, I will be reviewing it this episode, as well as revisiting the film itself, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday.
Well, isn't that special? So, Doc, my girlfriend has been plucking her eyebrows now for years. And it's to the point now she draws them on. She draws her eyebrows on her forehead.
Yes, many women do that.
Well, the other day, I pointed out to her that she drew them on her forehead much too high.
Oh, Karis, you didn't. Was she embarrassed? What did she say?
She didn't say anything. She looked surprised, though. Of course, she looked surprised before I even said that.
And on that note, it's time for horror news. Following the massive crossover success of the recent YouTube-originated genre hits Obsession and Backrooms, a major studio bidding war has now ended for one of the most influential analog horror properties moving to the big screen. Steven Spielberg's United Artists Amblin Entertainment managed to secure the rights to what's called the Mandela Catalog, about a fictional town called Mandela County in Wisconsin that's been invaded by shape-shifting entities. Pinocchio Unstrung brings fairy tale horror to the hospital and releases in North America July 24th, 2026. A sequel to It Follows is in the works called They Follow. Gary Dauberman is writing Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Yawn. And that's it for horror news. And Draven agrees. Draven the blood-vomiting bat. Children of the night, what messes they make. So as I said, I received the much sought-after documentary Heart of Darkness, The Making of the Final Friday. I'd like to talk about Sean S. Cunningham, who directed the original Friday the 13th in 1980. Now, what I'm about to say is solely my opinion. I don't see Sean S. Cunningham as a creative filmmaker, as in the likes of Wes Craven and John Carpenter. Sean S. Cunningham is a businessman. He's always been and always will be about making a buck. He stole the idea, admittedly by the way, of Carpenter's Halloween when he crafted Friday the 13th. He had a title and he had a newspaper ad before he even had a script, and has always voiced his hate for the Friday the 13th films, even though he made millions from them and spent millions fighting for sole rights to them in court. Jason Goes to Hell was the 9th film in the franchise, and the only one he returned for, not as a director, but as a producer, giving the director chair to a 23-year-old film student, Adam Marcus. Sean's actual words to Adam were, "I hate these films, get rid of that hockey mask, and you can do whatever you want." Years later, when he was asked about that statement, he lied and said Adam Marcus actually said that to him. No film student, being given the opportunity of a lifetime, would ever say anything remotely like that to someone who's been in the business as long as Cunningham has. Regardless, I wish Cunningham would just stay uninvolved with this franchise. And I'm glad the court sided with writer Victor Miller. That being said, weird that there would even be a whole documentary on what is probably the most hated film in the franchise. I never fully understood all the hate for this film because personally I feel Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is far worse. The documentary is fun and interesting, and you'll learn more than you ever wanted to know about Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. My biggest gripe is that there was nowhere to stream or rent this. Not that I didn't want to own it anyway, because I did. Is it worth the $55 price tag? Yeah! That's debatable. But hey, it was a gift, so I guess that makes it okay. If you love this franchise, then this doc is for you. If you're a casual fan, then not so much. There's a long list of movies Adam Marcus is involved in, and I recognize none of them, except 2013's Texas Chainsaw 3D, which he was one of the writers for. And I just rolled my eyes so hard, I'm sure you heard it. To sum it up, because I am a huge fan of this franchise, I really enjoyed this documentary, and I'm sure most who are big fans will as well. There's a second disc full of extras, 4 hours worth, including a Q&A with Adam Marcus and others involved in the film. minus Sean Cunningham, of course, at the 2025 Gardenia Cinema premiere. And sadly, the audience is non-existent. It looks like it was probably less than 50 people. 30 would be generous. I will state the best documentary on this franchise, in my opinion, is Crystal Lake Memories, The Complete History on Friday the 13th. I would implore any fan out there to pick that up. Not saying not to get this documentary. I'm just saying if it was a choice. But if I know most of you, you choose to have both.
Dark Mark's Macabre Cast, episode 164. Jason Goes to Hell and the films that surround it.
Horror chap Matt knows all about monsters. He said they were coming to get me tonight.
Hey, Doc Mark, Little Cars, and all the Monster Kids hang out at the theater this week. It's Horror Chat Matt back again. So, Doc, before I get to this week's topic, I did want to touch base on the fact that my wife and I finally got to see Obsession. I really enjoyed it, so did she. I don't think it was the greatest horror movie that's ever been made, but it was something original and new that we haven't seen 1,000 times before. I thought the main actress was phenomenal. I know some people say that she's annoying, but I think that's the whole point of her character is if you've ever been in a relationship or just had somebody in your life that was just like a little bit Looney Tunes, they are absolutely obnoxious and you want to get away from them. So I thought she nailed it and did a phenomenal job. I think overall I'll probably buy it when it comes out on physical media. But I will say one of the reasons why it's making such a killing at the theaters, or made such a killing at the theaters, is that young kids are going to see this thing in droves. At my job, we have summer helpers, and 3 of the kids, they're teenagers, that come in and help out here and there at my school, have all seen it and said it's the scariest movie they've ever seen. So it warms my heart knowing that the young kids are still getting out there and going to see horror movies at least. So that's good to hear. As far as this week's topic of Jason Goes to Hell, I have a special place for this one in my heart. Excuse me. This is the first Friday the 13th that I was old enough and came out that I was able to go to the movie theaters to see. Is it the best movie in the world? Absolutely not. Is it a super creative idea for a story? Absolutely. Is it a Friday the 13th story? No, I don't think so. But with all that being said, I don't hate this movie. I've never hated it. I wish Jason was in it more. It was more of a traditional Friday the 13th movie. The opening and ending was enough of a fix of Jason when I was growing up for me to like it. The middle part is what it is. The extended cut is a lot better than the theatrical cut. And if it's on, I'm going to watch it. And I laugh at it just like it's a guilty pleasure, just like most of them are. There's not a single Friday the 13th movie that I absolutely hate. I would probably say if I had to pick one that I hate, and no, it's not Jason X, I'd actually probably say Jason Takes Manhattan is my least favorite Friday the 13th movie. Just the false advertising and all that stuff let me down. That was a bit of a bummer once I finally got my hands on that VHS tape and they spent the whole movie on a cruise ship, but still fun. I don't hate any of them, like I said, but that would be my least favorite. All right, I think that'll be it for me for this week. Dark, have a great week, and I look forward to next week's show. And as always, make mine Macabre Cast.
Matt, I was very fortunate. My first Friday the 13th in the theater was part 2 because I had an uncle and an aunt that would take me to these type movies. So I saw part 2, part 3, part 4. I saw them all from 2 on. But I'm going to tell you, as I've said many times, I was so excited when I heard this film was coming out. No, it's not my favorite. but it wasn't my first Friday the 13th in the film. And there were things about it I love. We're not going to rehash all of that, though. Amazing that that was your first to see in the theater. And kind of a bummer. Too bad you couldn't have seen one of the earlier ones first in the theater. Now, my question to you was, first in the theater, but was it the first Friday the 13th you've ever seen? Were you familiar with the storyline at all before that film, or were you brand new to it? I would think that at that point you would have seen them on TV at least. So good always hearing from you, Horror Chat Matt, and we hope to hear from you again soon. Cobwebbed Classics. Welcome to Cobwebbed Classics, where I dust off a lost, forgotten, or just plain unappreciated film and introduce it to, or maybe just remind you about it, so your spooky Saturday night might run a little creepier. This week's Cobwebbed Classic is 1987's The Hidden, directed by Jack Shoulder, starring Kyle MacLachlan, Michael Noret, and Claudia Christian. A blend of genres, cop film, action film, sci-fi, and horror. What starts as a robbery of a Wells Fargo bank takes a very violent turn when the robber forces many off the road during a high-speed chase and kills innocent people in his path. Neighbors describe the perp as a quiet, decent gentleman. When the robber becomes cornered, he is shot down by police. While on life support in the hospital, the robber awakens, disconnects from the life support, and walks over to a comatose man in the next bed. He removes the comatose man's breathing mask, and a slug-like looking worm comes from the robber's mouth into the comatose man's mouth. The robber drops dead, the comatose man awakens, and walks out. By now, Monster Kids, I'm sure you see where this story is headed. And if you've seen 1993's Jason Goes to Hell, well, now you know where Sean S. Cunningham got his idea. Michael Noret was first offered the role of Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon. He turned it down, and it went to Mel Gibson. A sequel to the film called The Hidden 2 was released the same year as, you guessed it, Jason Goes to Hell. The tagline for this gem is as follows.
It killed 37 people, robbed 6 banks, 2 liquor stores, a record shop, and stole 2 Ferraris. Now the fun starts. It just took over a police station.
1987's The Hidden is this week's
Cobwebbed Classics.
Is this something you can share with the rest of us, Amazing Larry?
Greetings, Dark Mark and Karis the Little Mummy. Scary Larry here, from the land of spontaneous combustion. Karis, make sure your wraps aren't too dry if you happen to stop by. It's awful hot down here. Now, Karis, my rattling your bones is just good humor. Don't get too wrapped up in it. Oh, dang it, I did it again. Wow, Mark, let's grab Mr. Peabody and jump in the Wayback Machine for this week's topic. I wasn't the biggest fan of Jason Goes to Hell, but I love the Easter egg of the final scene. Little trivia. While it's Robert Englund's distinct Freddy laugh, it was Kane Hodder donning the famed razor glove as it came up through the sand and dragged the mask down below. I guess I just didn't like the concept of an alien-type worm jumping from body to body to make any host Jason. Although several movies have copied that concept in the years following, some better than others, but it just wasn't my cup of tea, the plot line. So I've been trying to catch Brain Dead or Dead Alive for some time, and finally watched when someone told me you can watch it for free and ad-free on YouTube. Way before Peter Jackson gained a worldwide following with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he cut his teeth like many newbie actors and actresses do, or directors, making low-budget horror schlock. He produced a clunker called Bad Taste, as well as this one. Both have their moments, but leave a lot to be desired. Set in Jackson's home country of New Zealand, an overbearing mother is bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey, gets infected and dies, only to come back as a zombie. Her dopey son tries his best to hide her, which is kind of confusing since her death was public knowledge and she was suffocating his love life. Slapstick ensues as she manages to infect and zombify everyone around her, except for her son and his love interest. I get hints of the first two Evil Dead films in this, and what I thought were touches of Cemetery Man, but it turns out this was released 2 years before. Rather goofy throughout, but the ending must have surpassed other horror at the time for the most blood and gore, by way of a human lawnmower strapped to the hero's chest, a la a certain hero with a chainsaw. But I'll let you watch and decide.
Cute jokes, Scary. Real cute.
Scary, this film has always been a guilty pleasure of mine because when I rented it many moons ago, I knew nothing about it. I went in cold and I loved it. The same way I loved Evil Dead 2. It had that same feel to me. And it's funny because never realized it was Peter Jackson because it was until years later when he became a household name. And then I looked back and said, oh, wow, that was his film. I was lucky enough to find it in a bargain bin at one point during maybe the 90s, the very early 2000s, and I snatched it up immediately. It is now part of my collection as a favorite. It is definitely not for everyone. But it is a favorite of mine. I find it very funny. It's very gory. And I try not to see films like this too much. I just try to revisit them every now and then. Always great to hear from you, Scary Larry, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
Hi, Monster Kids. Elijah Broke here. I'm the guy who operates the elevator to the pit of hell. I'm the last guy you see after you fudge up the Macabre Cast horror trivia. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. Did you ever ask yourself, how can I help Doc Mark? Well, if you listen to this on YouTube, like the video, and please hype the video. If you listen to it on Apple Podcast, give Doc Mark a 5-star review. These simple things will help win the battle of the algorithm. Your support is deeply appreciated.
So let's discuss Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. This is part 9 in the franchise and considered by most to be the worst in the franchise. Now, I'm going to discuss this film with the understanding that you've seen it. So, we're going to get into spoiler territory. If you are a big enough fan of the franchise and haven't seen it, is my show really for you? Because you know what? There are some lovely rom-com podcasts out there that you'd probably like better. Oh. I'll also be discussing the films surrounding this film, Part 8, Jason X, and probably Freddy vs. Jason. So there is your warning. No whining and no crying. And no, this isn't a deep dive episode like past episodes, All Things Shining, which was Macabre Cast episode 150, or All Things Burnt Offerings, Macabre Cast episode 156. This is just a Monster Kid discussion about a beloved horror franchise favorite, Friday the 13th. So, if I understand what the majority of Friday fans have issue with is not enough Jason. To a degree, I hear what fans are saying. We go to see these films to see a killer resurrected and go to town on anyone who enters his domain. I also have respect for anyone that tries something a little different. Let's start with Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. The film that ran out of money. The film that simply didn't have the budget to have as much of the film take place in New York as they would have liked. Heck, they didn't even have the budget for New York. Filmed practically all the city stuff in Vancouver, Vermont, and used B-roll of the real New York to make it look authentic. And because of budget, scaled down all the city scenes and had most of the film take place on the boat that brought the characters to New York. I do, however, love the look of Jason. I think he's like wet throughout the whole film. He's got like a constant slime about him. So getting to the end of Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. We're in the sewers of New York, and we've already been fed the story that at night the sewer system floods with toxic waste. And as Jason is chasing Rennie up a metal ladder, a rush of toxic waste comes barreling through the tunnel. And we hear what I assume is a flashback of Jason as a child saying, "Mommy, don't let me drown." When the flood passes, Rennie looks down to see Jason as a child. This is ridiculous nonsense. That is one of the things that make me hate the film. Or not hate it, because I find something to like about every Friday the 13th film, but very much dislike. And why does Jason as a child have hair? We've had 7 previous films proclaim he was bald and mongoloid-like. Correct? Anyway, had I been in charge of Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, instead of prepping the audience with a story about toxic waste flooding the sewers, and then having that be the end, the way I would have written it is, right before Jason grabs Rennie's leg, one of those ginormous alligators we're always hearing about in the New York sewer system would leap up, grab Jason, and the two would tussle, and Jason would be dragged down into the waters of the sewer. But what do I know? So, 4 years pass, and because of the upset of Part 8, I started thinking they're never going to make another one of these movies. I also bought the original movie poster for Takes Manhattan before I saw it. I did the same for Jason Goes to Hell. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was when Fangoria started talking about Jason Goes to Hell being in the works. When the trailers hit TV, I was stoked. And as I said before, Sean S. Cunningham was coming back to produce it. That excited me because it was before I had that number. The ads looked incredible. And just like Cunningham stole the story somewhat of Halloween, he was back. So this time he stole the storyline to a 1987 film called The Hidden. If you've heard this week's Cobwebbed Classic and you've seen both of these movies, you know. I've said it once, I will say it 1,000 times. If Sean S. Cunningham hates the Friday the 13th movies so much, please stay uninvolved. Because I believe everything people don't like about Jason Goes to Hell, he was directly responsible for. Jason, when he's on screen as Jason, looks great. His head is basically molded over the mask. The FBI blowing him to smithereens in the opening was awesome and very unpredictable. I love the bounty hunter Creighton Duke, who's played by Steve Williams, who played the state trooper chasing the Blues Brothers in John Landis's masterpiece. Some of the best kill scenes are in this movie, like the girl who gets split in half in the tent. But I understand Monster Kids, Jason's little demon spirit worm jumping from body to body, making anyone it gets into the axe-wielding killer, rubs most of you the wrong way. I'm fine with the demon worm explanation, but they should have cut all of that down, because Jason just has to enter another Voorhees blood relation in order to resurrect and bring back the Jason we know and love. And it took a tad too long. Best stuff in the film is the opening and the last 20 minutes. But again, I do like this film. And the end, when Freddy's hand comes up out of the dirt and snatches the hockey mask and his finger knives glove and brings it to hell. I saw this opening weekend, and that packed theater went crazy. Unfortunately, it would be 10 years before we would get that film. They had idea after idea go into a waste barrel. So in the meantime, in 2001, we got Jason X, where the government, now this is taking place in 2008, it came out in 2001, but the government in 2008 has Jason in lockdown, and they're doing research on his ability to, shall we say, not die. Eventually, he's put into cryogenic suspension, and our film jumps ahead to the year 2455, and Jason runs amok on a space station. I like this movie, with the exception of the atrocious acting of the entire cast. And we have to swallow the idea that this space station that's full of 20-something-year-old scientists would be running around in half-tops, boning everybody. I think I just expect too much from these movies. Maybe I'm the problem.
I feel bad for the people who don't care for Friday the 13th movies this week. Boy, you thought your viewership was getting low before? You may have just killed it. If you need me, I'll be in the back room asleep.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you, Karis, because I'm not going to deny that viewership is down, but, as I keep telling myself, that's not why I do this show. So on with, finally, Freddy versus Jason. This was one of my favorites. The fight scenes between the two exceeded my expectations. More bad acting and dialogue in between fight scenes, but I still enjoyed it. I'm not going to say anything more about Freddy vs. Jason because, frankly, I'd like to do an entire episode devoted to this particular film. At least one day, or maybe even just like a whole episode about monster mashups in general. So there is my take on Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, and the films that surround it.
Dark Marks Macabre Cast, Episode 164, Jason Goes to Hell, and the films that surround it.
The following program is rated TV MALV. It contains strong...
Land sakes alive! Here comes the chairman of the profanity party.
Good morning, Doc, Mark, Karis the Little Mummy, and all of the Macabre Cast fans tuning in for episode 164. Let me begin with episode 162, since I was not able to make the deadline the other week. I just wanted to say, as far as episode 162, I can't think of any situational horror movies that I've seen that I can relate to. So with that, I can say, thank goodness. Because most of them I'm pretty. Mark, you also mentioned The Green Room and how you could kind of relate. I watched this and it was a good movie. I felt really bad for those kids, man. Just, looking for a gig, out there and end up in a night of pure hell. Still waiting to see Near Dark, though. Also, thanks to Scary Larry for recommending the 2018 movie The Dark. I watched this and it was a good movie. I loved how the girl redeemed herself at the end. I thought it was a nice ending. However, I'd really like to know how a zombie can go back to living a normal life, though. Because a zombie's like undead, so it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, as far as episode 163, I love anything that has to do with outer space, aliens, UFOs. I absolutely believe in all of it. There's just way too much evidence from all over the world to not believe that we are not alone. Years ago, it was just hearsay, people talking, but then we had cameras, videos, and now you can see thousands and thousands of pictures of what people have seen and videos. I think some people refuse to believe it and just think when they see shit, it's just some logical explanation for it, But I believe it. when you have proof from all around the world, it's kind of hard not to believe. And I myself have witnessed weird things in the past that I've experienced myself that didn't make any logical sense. So I don't know, but that's just way too much for it to be just a logical explanation, I think, when you have video, pictures from all over parts of the world. So yeah, I believe there's absolutely, I don't know if there's so much little green men, tall green men, silver, I don't know. But absolutely, I think they are alive on some other planet. On the topic, Jason Goes to Hell, I can say it had some great kill scenes, I felt, but I was really not a big fan of it. In the ending, I mean, come on. But anyway, I'm going to see The Evil Dead Burn, and we'll give my review on episode 165. I'm very excited to go see this. As I've said before, I've seen every one of them, and I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. This one looks really creepy, and I just can't wait. I hope it's as good or even better as The Evil Dead Rise, because that was really freaking creepy. Also, the opening of that movie was like, oh my goodness, the best creepy opening ever, I thought. Well, enough said for now. I hope everyone has a good week ahead, and I will talk to you again on episode 165. And yeah, I like to drag out the last numbers. Au revoir.
As you know, Metal Melody, I am in the minority of people and Evil Dead Rise. I don't know why, I just wasn't a big fan. I do have high hopes for Burn, and especially Wrath. Burn looks very creepy on the ads, and I do intend to see it. It'll be interesting to hear what your take is on it, where you are so into these newer films of Evil Dead. Evil Dead Wrath, which is going to be a prequel to these, which is going to take place in 1972, that I'm really eager to see, and that is in production as we speak. Always great to hear from you, Metal Melody, and we hope to hear from you again next week.
Goditi questo episodio de Cast Macabre.
Thank you, Maria Monstalia, for telling our Italian friends to enjoy this episode of Macabre Cast. This week on The Final Thought, I just want to express my thank you for all that made it out to see us at the MGM Casino in Springfield, Massachusetts. Blizzard of Oz had a fantastic show. It was a fantastic audience, and so humbled by how many came out, especially at this time, this month, the anniversary of the Prince of Darkness's death. What a show. Great night. Again, thank you. Beware the moon. Keep clear of the moors. But most of all, remember, be good to yourself. This is Dark Mark, signing off. See you soon, I hope.
This is a Macabre Theater production.
Subscribe us.